If you've ever wondered how 1940s homesteaders survived brutal winters without gas lines, electric heaters, or constant thermostat tweaking, here's the hook. They mastered a heat system so efficient, so deliberately engineered, that a single fire carried an entire household for months. Not by magic, not by suffering, but by design. The fire wasn't a background appliance. It was the heart of the home, the main engine of survival, and every inch of the house served that engine with military-grade discipline forged by World War II realities. And the truth is even sharper than nostalgia lets on. These systems weren't rustic. They were brilliant. They were optimized. They were strategic. And they still work better than half the modern, efficient heating setups people rely on today. So let's walk into the real mechanics of how one fire heated a whole winter, and how you can apply the same principles to your own cabin, homestead, or off-grid safe house today, without needing anything more exotic than wood, intelligent layout, and old-school ingenuity. Right after World War II, homesteaders didn't treat fire as an accessory. They treated it as the core of the home. The entire layout orbited around it. No wasted corners, no dead zones, no heat trapped behind decorative hallways or closed-off wings. The stove sat dead center, radiating like a sun. Rooms that mattered, kitchen, work area, beds, clustered around it. Air moved freely because doors stayed open or didn't exist at all. That meant the same fire that cooked breakfast also warmed sleeping quarters and dried snow-soaked boots by noon. If you want to copy this today, don't start with buying an expensive high BTU stove. Start with placement. Heat hates distance. It hates obstacles. Even in a modern home or cabin, you can rearrange your living zones. Put your high-use spaces within line of sight of the stove. Sleep closer, work closer, live closer. Thermal logic beats thermal brute force every time. Here's something most people forget. 1940s houses weren't lightweight. They were dense. Heavy plaster walls, clay tile floors, brick chimneys, thick timber, quartz-based hearthstones. Every one of these acted as a thermal bank that soaked up heat during the day and released it slowly through the night. You're basically wrapping your fire in a chargeable heat battery. Today, you can replicate this with small changes. Line the wall behind your stove with stone or brick. Build a low masonry half wall next to it. Add fireproof tiles under and around the stove. These materials absorb energy. Even after the fire dies, the mass radiates gentle warmth for hours. And that's the secret 1940s homes exploited daily. Fire wasn't a moment. Fire was a cycle. They trapped heat the way a submarine traps air. Draft control wasn't optional. It was survival. Families sealed everything that could possibly leak warmth. Not with fancy tape or modern foam, but with sawdust packed between boards, rope caulking, wool strips stuffed into cracks, thick quilts hung over exterior doors. This is why their one fire worked. They didn't let it escape. If you're applying this today, tend to your leaks before you try to upgrade your stove. A small crack around a window frame can bleed heat all night. Hang heavy curtains. Roll a wool blanket along the bottom of drafty doors. Use rope caulk or weather stripping. Every tiny gap matters. In the 1940s, it was the difference between comfort and frostbite. Their fire did multiple jobs, so no heat went to waste. This is where modern homes really lose the plot. We heat rooms and only rooms, but back then they heated life itself. Everything they did revolved around capturing the byproducts of the stove's work. The rising hot air dried clothes hung from ceiling racks. The stovetop kept kettles warm, adding humidity and saving fuel for hot water. The oven baked meals while working as a secondary radiant heater. The stovepipe itself warmed entire upper floors before the heat escaped through the chimney. One fire, many functions. And today you can actually repeat these exact methods. Hang a drying rack above your stove. Your clothes will be bone dry without ever touching a dryer. Keep water heating on the stovetop all day. Use cast iron cookware that holds heat long after you remove it from the burner. Situate your pantry or curing area where warm air naturally flows. Every step, really, multiplies the value of each log you burn. This is the behavioral side of the system, and well, it's just as important. Families structured their day around the fire's rhythm. Morning chores began when the stove was hottest. Baking happened while the fire was at full burn. Nighttime preparations ensured the fire was banked with slow-burn fuel, often hardwoods or large chunks of dense material, to keep embers alive until dawn. Even sleep patterns bowed to the fire's cycle. People slept closer together in the warmest areas. They layered clothing intelligently instead of relying on higher fuel consumption. They embraced what the fire gave rather than forcing it to compensate for inefficient living habits. You can apply this today by syncing your routines with the natural heating profile of your stove. Do the most heat-dependent tasks during peak burn. Bank the fire before bed. Sleep in the zones closest to the heat mass. It's not old-fashioned, it's efficient. They built a survival system, not a heating gadget. This is the real takeaway for historians and modern survivalists alike. The 1940s fire-based heating system worked because it wasn't just a stove. It was a complete ecosystem. Layout, materials, behavior, insulation, multi-use, functionality. Everything converged. And that's why a single fire carried entire families through months of freezing weather, while modern homes scrambled to keep up, even with electric grids, gas lines, and central heat. If you take these principles and apply them intentionally, whether you're building a bug-out cabin, winterizing a homestead, or preparing for grid instability, you'll get the same results. Not nostalgia, not minimalism. Real performance. If you found this deep dive valuable and want more historical intelligence, real systems used by real people who knew how to survive winter the hard way, make sure you subscribe to HistoryHQ and share this with someone who'd appreciate the craft behind old world living.